All right, welcome to another episode from the Chart Readers. A tough day on the tickers, a tough day on the market, and I think what was the worst part of it was there wasn't too many technical things that said today was going to be a healthy cool down day. You know what I mean? So I'm not screaming panic by any means just yet. But today was an oddly ugly day, all right? And before I give you opening thoughts on the tickers themselves, we gotta look at the market. Oh, my cat's scratching at the door. What are you doing? Let's get you out of here. What are you doing? Don't hiss. Oh, she wasn't happy. Sorry about that. Let's take a look at the NASDAQ right here, right? Look, I see the drop over the last four trading days, right? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then that doji on Monday. But I also see us bouncing on the 8 like a champion. We lose it a quick bit, but this should have been a bounce. We should have held that 8 right there and gone up. Instead, we lose the 8 and basically, I mean, look, just a couple dollars away from kissing the 20 today, right? I mentioned in the beginning, like a minute ago, there was nothing technical that screamed it, and really, I'm looking at the RSI. It's not like our RSI was all the way up here, and yeah, we needed to cool down a little bit just for that healthy bounce and go, right? This on Monday was a very, very healthy 62. This on Monday had the MACD over the green over the red, right? Like it's not like even here, right? On this bad candle right here, obviously we know what happens the next day, and hindsight's 2020, right? But as you look at this candle, the RSI was sitting at an 80, the MACD was actually already red over green. It made sense that we were going to cool down right here. Luckily, the moving averages did their thing, right? That's not what was happening on this Monday candle. Healthy RSI, green over red on the MACD, you get the picture, right? So very unexpected, and that is bothersome, right? I think I could say the exact same things about the S&P 500. For sure there was a downtrend, but for sure this thing knows how to bounce like a champion, and it decided not to, right? It comes right here, and yeah, it was just tough, right? And you look again yesterday, green over red, healthy RSI, right? I mean, uh, uh, um, it was tough. It was, and again, it's not like we have a crystal ball and we know for sure what's going to happen tomorrow. But generally, when things are healthy, you expect things to stay healthy, right? Dow Jones, you can say had the best of the day, right? This actually was in the green, so that's an easy way. But yeah, this is definitely a doji right here, right? And what looked like an escape and confirmation of all the moving averages has been a pretty interesting horizontal right here, right? Maybe we'll wait to see what the 8 moving average does, and maybe this can actually bounce on it. We still have green over red on both of these, right? But I think the easy thought is maybe we have to look away from tech for a bit and check out a couple more Dow Jones kind of tickers, right? Obviously, we're going to be looking at some tech heavy tickers, so that's probably going to sway a lot of what I'm going to say, right? And believe me, I get way better views when I say really good things about tickers, but there's a lot of reasons to be worried on BBAI. I would very much say SoundHound was unexpected. I did not expect. The 8 should have bounced right there, right? Kind of the same thing I said about the Nasdaq and S&P 500. That'll be my main comment. But hey, we're still over the golden line. We're still over the 20 moving average. I just don't know if we're about to lose, another 60 cents right there, right? So we'll talk about this stuff right here, and then SOFI. Look, I think today's candle on SOFI really reminds us that this is an interesting mix of Dow Jones banking and Nasdaq technology, right? This thing actually gaps up. It opens all the way up here. It then runs almost a couple cents below our resistance. Did it actually even hit 24.90, right? So it was close. And then I think the tech side of it is really what drove this down, right? So yeah, sorry, I was just trying to see when it happened, right? But it really was the whole day right there. It's not like it happened at just like the end, right? So yeah, I am right now. I think, like I said, I think we'll end it with tomorrow needs to confirm, right? We're not here making rash decisions on a single candle, but if tech, has a bad candle tomorrow, and what does that mean, right? Let's look at QQQ. If NASDAQ or QQQ loses the 20, especially if this thing loses 570, right? QQQ specific, if it loses 570, I imagine we're gonna fall all the way down to 560 right here, right? And from there I might even be thinking 50 moving average, right? So we cannot lose 570. Truly, I don't even want to lose, yeah, 570. What's line? What's Yeah, it's basic. Okay, so I'm rounding and I'm realizing it's a couple numbers. So we can't lose 565. Let's use 565 as our very bad line. 570 is what really needs to hold. If we lose that 565, we're going to drop. Wow, it's not that much. It doesn't really, maybe we'll drop to this then, to 560, because that's the bottom of this, half of this, and top of that. I think I'm okay with that. It's only a $10 move. I realize that, but a 1% drop on QQQ, a 1% drop on NASDAQ equivalent, it's a big, big thing. All right. So that was just bad rounding on my side. Before we do go any further, though, and I give you more of my thoughts and opinions, what are we going to do? Same thing we always do, right? We'll take a look at the daily and the weekly to see how these things are setting up short term. We have our 5 moving averages. There are horizontal support and resistance lines that I do draw manually myself. And then when we are done up here, we'll use the MACD, RSI, and volume as our lower indicators. Hey, really quickly, if you can, please subscribe to this channel. Share this video online with your friends. Comment good or bad if you disagree. Look, anything you can do helps so much with these YouTube algorithms. But for real, just being here, giving me your time, oh, I'm so grateful for it, all right? So, look, outside of technicals, I for sure, and I haven't made a video in a couple days, so I do apologize about that, all right? I saw the headlines about the Narval deal. I think I'm saying that the company name, but the BBAI launches a cargo security management solution with Narval. All right, that was basically the headline a few days ago. I believe that was the headline that lifted this candle right here, right? But I say it all the time. I live and die by the moving averages. And to me, you gotta break key resistances before you gotta give the news the weight it deserves, right? I think at the bare minimum, even if you don't talk about moving averages and lines and things like that, the volume did absolutely nothing when the news came, right? We couldn't even get to our 50-day line, right? So there was no rush of good coming into this in terms of volume, right? And I'm telling you, you need volume to break really tough resistances, all right? So we've now done a death cross, all right? I don't really talk about golden crosses and death crosses often because sometimes they're kind of fake signals, but that seems like a scary death cross to me. It really does, because now I'm also wondering if the 20 is going to keep coming down and also do a death cross by the end of the week, right? So that's not a good technical thing. You don't want something to start with the word death, right? So that's a bit of a worry. But more than anything, what I'm seeing, and it's what I said, I think almost immediately after the earnings candle, right? I wasn't expecting us to get over the 50 moving average right here, right? If we were, I didn't think we were going to get over 7, and it really was because of that earnings, right? I know this looks like a decent candle, right? We opened down here, we go all the way up here. Some people actually made some decent money on that gap down right there, but the earnings was rough, right? We talked about all of it. They removed guidance. They missed on a number of key things. Like it was a tough candle. And now you're adding all of a sudden this weird NASDAQ 1.5% loss day. Are we about to lose the 20 moving average and make our way down to what, roughly under 21? Are we going to lose 21,000? That's actually a very real possibility. I can see 20,050, and then if that fails, maybe 20,800, right? So if we start to shake on Nasdaq, that's only going to make things worse for BBAI, and really the next places down are going to be $4.80. After that, it's basically going to be this. I think I'm even going to delete this line. At this point, we have 2 moving averages really close, and those are going to be our lines. It's either going to be 480 or 430, okay? When we come to the weekly, Oh man. So 480 lines up with almost the 20 moving average on the weekly. Because this thing says if we lose that 480 roughly, we might fall all the way to 4, and then below that's going to be the threes, right? So I think for now we're going to use 480 as the next target. All right, it's basically all of this being lost, and it's almost perfectly 50% of this candle, right? Like give or take, like right there, and that's give or take where that blue line is right there, right? So um, it seems like this is going to come to 475. Look, I know a 38 is a really low RSI and it should turn. I remember saying this only a few months ago this year, right? One, two, three, four, less than 5 months ago, our RSI was a single digit four, followed by the next day being a three, followed by the next day being a three, followed by the next day being a three, followed by the next day being a 4.9, almost 5, followed by a 7, and then still an 8 before we start going double digits, right? And even that 16 is obviously really low, right? So just because we're close to that 30 number where the RSI should turn around and go up, oh man, I don't know, all right? And I think I'm a little bit worried about the space. Like normally, I get excited about good channel spacing, right? This weekly spacing is worrisome because there's a real path to 5. You lose that, there's a real path to 4. You lose that, there's a real path to 330, right? And that's the spacing we like to break backwards, right? I want to be down here and then go from here to here, then go from here to here, right? Like that's normally what we look for, right? So there is a real chance that over the next, what, let's call it a month, you lose this one in 1 week, this one in 1 week, this one in 1 week. Maybe there's a second week in one of them, and over the next month, it's realistic that this can come down to 330 right there, right? Where is 330? It is actually under the 200 as well. Is it in this line somewhere? No, it's even lower than that. Dang. Yeah, I think it's very, very wildly aggressive to think that 330 line, even that 4 line is a lot lower. Well, I guess I wouldn't say a lot lower. It's about 10. Look, I think for now the lowest we're really thinking is 4. My next expectation is 475. All right. I would be really worried if this thing lost. I mean, I would even keep it tighter. You're already below this line. What's your 50%? That's basically the same line I was going to draw. Yeah, this is just a tough channel right here. It is. Look, if you're long and strong, I'm here looking at short term. And believe me, I still believe in AI. I still love tech stocks. You know that, right? But you just got to look at the realities of immediate if you're a short term trader like I am, right? And there's a lot this thing needs to do to catch up, all right? So on the flip side, look, SoundHound doesn't look great right now. Obviously, we that green, green, green love from earnings just went red, 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 right? It is what it is. And really, what should have been an 8 moving average bounce point wasn't. And you see what happens. And again, I just same things I was saying with BBAI. I would love it if we were down here and we can attack the channel up there. What's now happened is we lost this line, it seems like, and now we're in the bad side of the channel, and we might be heading down to the golden line, it seems like, right? The thing to remember is the 8 and the 20 are really good friends, right? And I say that like very loosely, but it's true. It's the simplest way to understand it, right? You lose the 8, but the 20 is a strong line, and it oftentimes is strong enough to bounce you right back over the 8 like it never happened. All right, so as much as these last 3 days were not ideal, all right, for sure, today was a 10% loss. Horrible, right? We're still over the 20, we're still over the golden line. If we lost 1260, that's where things actually would start to get scary because all of a sudden I'm going to start thinking to myself 1140. That should be real difficult to lose, but hey, after 1140, you at least got to consider 1045 below that, right? So That for sure, that 1260 is my tolerance, all right? As long as we don't lose that, it is okay here, right? It's just really sad that this thing seemed like it went from an interesting earnings doji to what looked like a good confirmation. RSI was a little high, yeah, but it actually even never cracks the 80s. On this peak day right here, RSI was only 77, right? So, um, it's a little odd that it's happening. But again, I'm looking at the greater market right now. Let's see what does happen. There's been a bit of a downtrend on Nasdaq as well. If we can bounce here, that would be perfect. All right. So for now, SoundHound, look, it doesn't look good, and I'm not trying to pretend it does, right? But it's significantly better than BBAI because, I mean, number one, this is under more moving averages, and number two, this had bad earnings as opposed to Sound at having the good earnings, right? So let's see what this next support does, and ultimately, if that fails, that's going to be the next point, right? So um yeah, I think that's kind of everything here. Do I want to look at the weekly? Oh, look at that. Look, we're still over the 8 moving average. That's lining up with our golden line as well. If we were to lose that, this actually echoes that 10, I think we said 1075 on the daily, right? So, in a lot of ways the weekly does echo the daily, and let's just see if this holds, all right? So, let me know your thoughts. Let me know your opinions, even if you disagree. Let's come into SOFI. And man, SOFI is an interesting little ticker here. All right. So I said it in the opening thoughts. I'm going to start with it here. All right. I think today's candle is a real good reminder that SOFI lives on a very interesting edge of Dow Jones and NASDAQ. All right. This thing ultimately is a bank, right? There are not many more things as Dow Jones as a bank, maybe a farm, right? Or just like straight manufacturing or transport, right? But banking is as Dow Jones as you can get, and that is what SoFi is. The Dow Jones, the DJ30, just in case you skipped the opening thoughts, this had the best day. This had the nicest of the the nicest of the highs, and not as scary as a low, and ultimately actually closed green, right? I think that is what made SoFi gap up, right? Because there were a lot of really good tech setups. I see this. This is definitely overall the moving averages. There were a lot of good tech setups that didn't even gap up, right? So, let alone lost double digit percentages, right? So, to me, I think this gap up really is some Dow Jones love. I think ultimately this thing lives a little bit more NASDAQ techie, and that's why the candle just never was able to pick it up from there, right? I think this really echoes a lot of what I just said on SoundHound, and maybe that's what I should have chaptered this with, but I'll keep this on its own, right? We are below the 8. It's just the first time, and this one's way less of a 8 moving average loss than we saw in those other two, right? I think more importantly, we don't want to lose the 20. We don't want to lose the golden line. That's the exact same thing I said with SoundHound, right? As long as we don't lose 2240, everything should be okay. If I was to do a danger line, I might use this 2140, but I think that might be a little too far down. 2170, 2180 is arguably a good safer line. There's no such thing as safe, right? But yeah, I think if you lose that 2180, there's a real good chance you'll probably, yeah, really, there's not that much support. You might fall all the way down to 19. I don't think this is going to go below 2140 though. I know I'm clicking on a red one right here, but what I'm really looking at is these two right here. It's the bottom of that, the top of that, almost the bottom of that right there. Like, I think 2140 might be a really good support line to consider if you're okay with that tolerance down there. Losing that is where I'll start thinking maybe we'll head down here. 50 still coming up too, right? So I think it's going to go above that $20 line, and really then looking at less than a 10% drop right there, right? But yeah, I'm telling you, I on the last video, I sounded a lot more cocky on this ticker than I should have, and this is the slap in the face I deserve, right? But there's no such thing as expecting. There's no such thing as guaranteed. Believe me, I expected and I guaranteed and I thought that this thing was going to break and go into all-time highs. Not quite the case yet. No reason to panic unless we lose these. Really, SOFI is also one of those stocks where like, I thought it was going to do a little bit better on the 50 right here. I was going to say, I don't remember the last time it really hit the 50. Actually, look at this. I'm not a big fan of zoomed out, and I'm glad I did this. I almost ended the video. Here, we make a nice run up. We then start to lose it, and the 50, yeah, it allows a bounce right there, but ultimately we lose it pretty badly, and that's almost the exact same thing that happens here. Once we lose the 8 and the 20, the 50 actually never is that good, and actually a little bit right there as well. That's an interesting thing to keep your eye on, because all of a sudden I'm now maybe even thinking that this 18, 19, 20 won't hold, and I got to start worrying about 16 and change here, which obviously would be horrible, right? But I don't like the weakness of the 50 moving average. I mean, even right here, right here, right here, and then right here. Almost you can say right here too, but there's a tight cluster and I won't count that. But really the last four interactions with that 50 moving average, it was not as strong a support as I would want it to be and as I would expect it to be. So I'm glad I zoomed out and saw that right there. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your opinions, even if you disagree. Oh, I appreciate you so, so much.